All right, let's dive into cancer immunotherapy today and this drug, atezolizumab. We're going to be talking about how it works, what cancers it's used for, all that good stuff, and all based on information from Assay Genie.
Yeah, this is really a big change in how we think about treating cancer. Instead of, attacking the cancer cells directly, we're kind of using the body's own immune system to fight the cancer.
So we're basically training like an elite force of immune cells to seek and destroy.
Right, exactly.
But how does this actually work, this whole immunotherapy thing?
So atezolizumab is what we call a monoclonal antibody,
Mm-hmm.
and it works by inhibiting something called PD-L1. You can think of the PD-L1 as like a shield that
Oh,
some
wait.
cancer cells use so that the immune system can't see them.
Oh, so they're like hiding?
Yeah, they're basically trying to be invisible.
Sneaky.
Zigger.
So how does atezolizumab stop that?
Well, atezolizumab basically disrupts that shield,
Yeah.
exposes the cancer cells, and then the immune system can see them and attack. It's important to note that it specifically targets PD-L1 without affecting PD-1, which makes it, different from some other immunotherapies.
So it's more precise. So it's
Yeah.
not affecting the whole immune system, just the parts that need to be affected.
Exactly. It avoids disrupting the whole immune system,
Mm,
which means fewer side effects.
makes sense. And this seems like a really important treatment for a lot of cancers.
It is, yeah. It's FDA approved to treat a few different cancers,
Mm.
like non-small cell lung cancer, bladder cancer, and triple-negative breast cancer.
Oh, wow. Those are some serious cancers. So this is great news for patients who, might not have had many options before. But what about like other cancers? Is there research looking into other uses for this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. One area of research is using atezolizumab in what we call adjuvant and neoadjuvant settings.
So those terms might be a little confusing for some people. Can
Yeah.
you explain what those mean?
Yeah, so adjuvant therapy is given after the initial treatment. Like if someone had surgery to remove a tumor, adjuvant therapy would be given after that
Hmm.
to try to prevent the cancer from coming back.
Okay.
And then neoadjuvant therapy is given before the main treatment, so to try to shrink the tumor before surgery.
Oh, I see. So the adjuvant is kind of like preventing it from coming back.
Yeah.
And then neoadjuvant is like shrinking it beforehand.
Exactly.
That's incredible. So like what cancers are they looking at for these types of therapies?
Well, early research with atezolizumab in both adjuvant and neoadjuvant settings is showing a lot of promise, especially for non-small cell lung cancer
Mm.
and triple-negative breast cancer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there. There's also a lot of research on using atezolizumab in combination with other therapies.
Oh, okay. So like combination therapies to like make it even more effective.
Right.
So what kind of combinations are they looking into?
Well, they're combining atezolizumab with other immunotherapies and also with targeted therapies and even chemotherapy. The idea is to basically attack the cancer from many different angles.
That makes a lot of sense. And it kind of makes me think about biosimilars. We've mentioned them a couple of times, but I think it would be good to like talk a little bit more about them. What exactly are biosimilars?
Okay, so biosimilars are basically highly similar versions of, these complex biologic drugs. Like atezolizumab, they're made using the same ingredients and processes as the original drugs, so they end up being like almost identical. But usually they're a lot more affordable.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So why is this affordability so important for research?
Well, because it makes it possible for, a lot more scientists
Right.
to use these drugs for research. So more research can happen, more data can be collected.
Hmm.
And that means, progress in the fight against cancer can happen faster.
That's really cool. So it's about like making these tools available to more people. I like that. Now, I know that like biosimilars have to meet really high standards, but how are they different from generic drugs? Because I know generic drugs can have different ingredients.
Yeah, that's a good question. So unlike generic drugs, biosimilars have to undergo a ton of testing to make sure that they're basically the same as the original drug
Mm.
in terms of safety, purity, and potency.
Okay, so researchers can be confident that even though they're using a biosimilar, it's still going to be effective.
Exactly, yeah.
So, how are researchers actually using this atezolizumab biosimilar?
Well, one of the biggest areas of research is trying to better understand how the PD-L1 pathway actually works. Remember, this is the pathway that atezolizumab targets.
Right, the whole shield thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're trying to figure out how to like expose the cancer cells better.
Right. They're trying to figure out how atezolizumab works so that they can potentially develop even better treatments in the future.
That's amazing. Is that the only thing they're looking at?
Now, Another area is using the biosimilar to test different combination therapies.
Hmm.
So combining it with other immunotherapies, targeted therapies, and even chemotherapy to see which combinations work best.
Oh, cool. And are they finding that some combinations are working better than others?
Yeah, some early research suggests that certain combinations with the atezolizumab biosimilar are more effective than any single therapy alone.
That's great news. This is all really fascinating. It seems like biosimilars are really playing a key role in like all this research. But I'm curious, what about Assay Genie? We mentioned them at the beginning. What role are they playing in all this?
So Assay is a company that provides research tools,
Mhm.
including biosimilars. They're basically making sure that researchers have access to these tools so they can do this important research.
So they're kind of like the support system for all these researchers.
Yeah, you could say that.
That's really great. It's inspiring to see how like scientists and companies are working together to fight cancer,
Yeah, definitely.
like a team effort.
It is.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground so far. We've talked about atezolizumab and how it works and the role of biosimilars in research. But now I think it's time to shift our focus to how atezolizumab is actually being used to help patients. So we'll be back after a quick break.
So atezolizumab, it's FDA approved for like a bunch of different cancers. Non-small cell lung cancer, urothelial carcinoma, which is bladder cancer, and triple-negative breast cancer, which is, known to be pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. So it's great that there's another treatment option out there.
Right. And like, it's not just another chemo drug. It's a completely different way of treating these cancers for patients who have like already tried everything else.
It's amazing how immunotherapy is really changing the game. It's not just about like killing the cancer cells directly. It's about helping the body fight back on its own. But we talked earlier about using atezolizumab in adjuvant and neoadjuvant settings. Can you remind us what those are again?
Sure. So adjuvant therapy is basically anything given after the main treatment, like after surgery, to try to prevent the cancer from coming back.
Right.
And then neoadjuvant therapy is given before the main treatment to shrink the tumor so it's easier to remove with surgery.
Gotcha. So adjuvant is like preventing it from coming back, and neoadjuvant is shrinking it before surgery.
Exactly.
That's pretty incredible. So, like, what have they found so far with those types of treatments?
Well, for non-small cell lung cancer, studies have shown that atezolizumab as an adjuvant therapy can really reduce the risk of the cancer coming back, especially for patients with earlier stages of the disease.
Wow, so it's like an extra layer of protection.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about neoadjuvant therapy?
For neoadjuvant, there's research showing that it can actually shrink tumors before surgery, which makes it easier to remove them.
That's awesome. Are they seeing that in other types of cancer too?
Yeah, they're seeing it in triple-negative breast cancer too. They're finding that atezolizumab can shrink tumors before surgery, and sometimes it can even lead to like a complete response, which means that after surgery, there's no cancer left at all.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like atezolizumab has a lot of potential for different types of cancer. But we also talked about combining it with other treatments. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So you can imagine combining atezolizumab with other immunotherapies that target different parts of the immune system, or combining it with targeted therapies that focus on specific mutations.
So it's like attacking the cancer from multiple angles.
Exactly.
What are the benefits of doing that?
Well, one big benefit is that it can help overcome drug resistance. Sometimes cancer cells become resistant to a single therapy, but if you hit them with multiple therapies at the same time, it's harder for them to become resistant.
So it's like outsmarting the cancer cells.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are there any other benefits to combination therapies?
Yeah. Another benefit is that it can just make the treatment more effective overall. By using therapies that work in different ways, you can sometimes get a much better response than with just one therapy alone.
That's really interesting. It's like having a whole team of superheroes fighting the cancer.
Exactly.
So are they finding that these combination therapies are working well?
Yeah, early studies are showing some really promising results. Some combinations seem to be much more effective than using just one therapy.
That's great to hear. We've been talking a lot about biosimilars. Can you just remind us again, why are they so important for research?
Well, because biosimilars are so much more affordable. They allow researchers to do larger studies and get more data on how well these treatments work.
Right, so it's about making research more accessible.
Yeah.
And because biosimilars are so similar to the original drugs.
Researchers can be confident that the data they're getting is accurate.
That's great. So it seems like Assay Genie is playing a pretty important role in all this.
Yeah, they are. By providing high-quality biosimilars for research They're helping to drive innovation and discovery.
It's amazing how everything is connected. From the scientists doing the research to the companies like Genie providing the tools, it's all contributing to better treatments for cancer patients.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've talked about the science behind atezolizumab and the potential of biosimilars. But I think it's important to remember that behind all the science, there are real people whose lives are being affected by this drug. So let's talk about some of those stories. What are some of the experiences of patients who have been treated with atezolizumab?
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all the science.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is all about helping people.
Absolutely. And there are so many inspiring stories out there of people who have been helped by atezolizumab.
Do any specific stories come to mind? Well, there's this one woman, Sarah. She was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer a few years ago. And she had tried like every other treatment. Nothing was working. But then she got into a clinical trial for atezolizumab, and her tumors actually started shrinking. She was able to go back to like doing the things she loved.
Wow, that's incredible. It's amazing how resilient the human body can be. Are there any other patient stories that stand out to you?
Yeah, there's this guy, John. He had bladder cancer, and he had surgery to remove the tumor, but there was a high risk of it coming back. So he was given atezolizumab as adjuvant therapy, and he's been cancer-free for years.
That's amazing. It's so great to hear stories like that. It really shows how much of an impact this drug is having.
Yeah, for sure. And as more research is done
Hmm.
and atezolizumab becomes more widely available, I think we're going to see even more stories like this.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about how atezolizumab works, the role of biosimilars in research, and the impact this drug is having on patients' lives. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, I'm listening.
With all these advances in immunotherapy, and with tools like biosimilars becoming more available, what other kinds of cancer treatments do you think we might see in the future?
That's a really great question. It's hard to say for sure, but I think we're on the verge of some really amazing breakthroughs.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time for cancer research. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, there are a ton of resources available online, and of course, Genie is a great place to start.
For sure.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into atezolizumab and the exciting world of cancer immunotherapy. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of science.